Happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary. Pour a cheerful toast and fill it, happy anniversary. But be careful you don't spill it, happy anniversary. Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary. Happy J and Happy G, both as happy as can be, celebrating merrily our happy anniversary. Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary. We now state emphatically, it's happy anniversary. Not another day could be a happy anniversary.
So, Joe?
George?
To our 200th episode, and maybe there be more.
You're not even drunk yet, and you're messing up. Let's say 200.
Like at least one more episode after this. Let's get to 201 before we kill each other.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too.
We're having champagne, folks. That's what you hear us drinking. It's what kind of champagne is it, my friend?
Drinking Andre Pink Moscato.
And where's that champagne from?
California.
That's where champagne's supposed to come from.
That doesn't seem like where champagne's supposed to come from.
They've been lying to us all these years.
I've been fucking liars. So.
Well, welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast looks at old movies and asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romacka. And today for our 200th episode.
200?
200. That's 4 years worth of episodes.
Isn't it amazing?
Actually, yes. We are discussing Joe's favorite film of all time, The Third Man from 1949. And, of course, some historical context. First, podcasty stuff. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us and leave 5-star ratings everywhere. Even the friends who play dead to avoid justice. Tell them too.
The hell was that a reference to?
Really?
Oh, this way. Well, I guess he's avoided justice. You're right.
And leave 5-star ratings everywhere. You can pick up what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/dtswpod. Now, Joe, take us back further than we've ever gone back for this show to 1949.
1949. Harry Truman was president. George Orwell's 1984 was published. Death of a Salesman was on Broadway. Hamlet won the Academy Award for Best Picture, the first British film to win a Best Picture Oscar. The Emmy Awards began that same year, and the first daytime soap opera was broadcast on television. Titled, These Are My Children, the show aired 5 days a week, live for a whole 15 minutes. 1949 is also the year astronomer Fred Hoyle coined the term the Big Bang for the theory of how the universe began, which he meant as an insult. He didn't think the universe started that way and was mocking those astronomers who did. But oops, they actually like that label and still use it today. Good work, Fred.
Yeah. Like, fuck you, Fred. But also, thanks for that.
Overseas, the Cold War is in full swing, with NATO ratified and the Soviets setting off their first atomic bomb. And what was up with Vienna, where this film is set? Let's look at some headlines. This is brought to us from the Salt Lake Tribune. Headline, George.
Real quick, this is set in Vienna. When I started writing the summary, I kept saying it was Berlin because of the way Vienna was broken up into the four powers, according to the Potsdam Declaration, which also happened to Berlin. The only difference is Berlin ended up having a wall built in it.
It did.
Yeah.
And what was that wall called?
The Berlin Wall.
The Berlin Wall. There we go. And someday, maybe America will have a wall. It'll be called the Mexican Wall. And we'll be trapped behind it. But that's another story. Anyway.
So, Yank deserter claims Russ spy job offer.
A recruit and army deserter by the name of Donald L. May, with his German girlfriend, Anna Ulrich, accidentally crossed over into the Soviet zone of Vienna. As this film demonstrates, Austria was occupied by the Allies after the defeat of the Axis powers in World War II. So America had a section, the Brits had a section, France also had a slice, and of course the Soviets got their share. While May was held, and he was held 110 days under horrible conditions, he was offered a chance to become a Russian spy. Which is pretty stupid if that's the case, considering he was a deserter, and as such, he wouldn't have been trusted with any useful information the Soviet Union could have used. Am I right about that, George? If you go AWOL, it ruins any chance you have of getting access to top secret files.
I don't know that it's a hard, fast rule like that's written down anywhere, but it damn well should.
Because we know we already can't trust you. Why would they do that? Mm-hmm. It was interesting to note that the Americans had to negotiate this guy's release, and there were other missing soldiers that the government seemed to believe that the USSR had. Well, we know they had because Donald May said he spoke with them. I have to say, I didn't realize so soon after the war ended that America and Russia were so hostile to each other, where soldiers weren't just handed over without any need for negotiations. I know the Cold War had begun, but wow. Anyway, let's move on to this piece from the Press of Atlantic City. Headline, George.
Battle waged over Austria by East, West. Cold War goes on there like in Reich, but is kept under surface.
I will quote and see if this sounds familiar to you, listeners, especially those of you who've had to deal with online leftists. Under the surface, there is a very real struggle for this tiny country at the crossroads of Europe. Soviet strategy calls for tactics of terror and intimidation, constant propaganda against the imperialists and warmongers of the West, and efforts to block Austria's economic recovery. End quote. The imperialists and warmongers line sure jumped out at me. I don't know about you folks, but if you've ever wasted your time arguing online with certain people who declare themselves more liberal than you, you're going to hear that slur. But I had no idea it was an old line from before I was even born. Back to the article. To offset this and keep Austria aligned with the West, the United States, France, and Britain have thrown their combined weight behind the anti-communist government. Huge loans, grants, and relief shipments pour into the country and are widely publicized. Real efforts are being made to restore Austria's economic stability, full sovereignty, and complete political independence. Caught in the middle, Austria's population of 7 million watches in anxiety. The existence of a strong central government with a large measure of control over Austria's internal economy is the largest single factor deterring the Russians from turning Vienna into another Berlin. End quote. I want to quickly add that spending lots of money on a society not only prevents it from going commie, it also prevents it from fascism, which is why Republicans hate it so much. But that, again, is another story. Now, having said what I said, let's not get it twisted. I don't think America is perfect, and I most certainly believe the American government is perfectly capable of propaganda, for which this next story may be an example from the Pittsburgh Press. Headline, George.
Russia bleeds black markets to aid war machine, world's Reds.
Now, I'm going to read this, and listener, you can decide for yourself if this is a journalist informing us or the work of a U.S. government mouthpiece, or both. Just because something smells like government-approved talking points, it doesn't mean what it's saying isn't true. Let's read. One of the greatest crime rings in history, involving countless millions of dollars annually, is being operated throughout the world by the Soviet Union. There are two primary objectives for the vast underground. To obtain for international commerce use the mountains of American greenbacks essential for commerce, espionage, and propaganda. To obtain raw materials and manufactured goods from the West for the economic recovery of Russia and its Balkan Bush League. And to strengthen the Soviet war machine. Neither one of these objectives can be achieved in a legal manner, thanks to the self-constructed Iron Curtain, the counter-blockade, and the Soviet bloc's miserable shortage of precious Yankee dollars. The ramification of this Soviet crime ring goggles the mind. Americans, Frenchmen, Englishmen, sharp operators from 20 countries are feeding off the brilliantly organized scheme. End quote. The author of this, by the way, was a gentleman by the name of Fred Sparks, who won a Pulitzer Prize for international reporting, so he probably knew what he was talking about. I linked this story, as I do all news stories, in our show notes if you want to read further. Okay, George, tell us about The Third Man.
So this was directed by Carol Reed,
whose work I've seen in Oliver, which won an Oscar in the 1970s.
Oliver won an Oscar.
For Best Picture, yes.
Oy vey. This was written by Graham Greene,
whose work I know from This Gun for Hire from 1949. It was based on his novel.
Alexander Korda, who we don't know from anything, and Orson Welles.
Now, Orson Welles, I have a long history with because I'm an old man, and he was in film quite a bit. I've seen, or rather heard him, in History of the World Part 1. I saw him in The Muppet Movie, Catch-22, Casino Royale, the 1967 version. Quick backstory on that. This movie was a spoof of James Bond because at the time, the producer had the right to Casino Royale, the first ever James Bond book. He could not compete with the actual James Bond movie series, so he decided to make a comedy. I also saw Orson Welles in pictures he directed, like Touch of Evil, The Lady from Shanghai, The Stranger, 1946 version, The Magnificent Ambersons, and, of course, Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane, of course, is the movie considered to be the greatest movie ever made because it was such a massive influence on other movies. I'll give you a quick example, George, and it was because I saw this in film school. The guy who saw it with me is also taking the class. He's going like, I don't understand why they think this is so impressive. And I said, well, like, for example, look, there's a scene where they're at the table and the table keeps getting bigger and bigger as the marriage falls apart, these two characters. And like, that's fantastic. He said, oh, I've seen that before. And I'm like thinking, yeah,
you saw
this
that
is the
after.
first. Yeah, exactly. This is the first film to do it. That's why people consider it the greatest film. It's always a problem when you're something that's really successful and people copy from it, and then people go back and watch it. They think you're the ripoff. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, 100% true of Richard Pryor. If you look back at Richard Pryor's stand-up, it'll seem like it's such a ripoff of all these other black comedians. Because it sounds repetitive because other people took what he did and just did their own versions of it, and suddenly it seems not as original. That's what happens when you're the leader.
Just goes to show all art is to some extent or another derivative.
Indeed.
Blurbs. IMDb says, pulp novelist Holly Martins travels to shadowy post-war Vienna, only to find himself investigating the mysterious death of an old friend, Harry Lime.
Yeah, okay.
Amazon says, pulp novelist... Oh, wow. No, never mind. Amazon has the exact same blurb.
Oh.
I didn't notice until just this fucking moment.
Who do you think ripped off who?
Well, Joe, all art to some extent
is derivative.
The opening credits happen over the image of a zither strings vibrating. The zither was played by Anton Kares. The theme song to The Third Man went on to become an unexpected musical sales hit. It sounds like ragtime on strings with a melody reminiscent of Merry-Go-Round Broken Down, the basis for the Looney Tunes theme.
That's the first time I've ever heard anybody connect this to Looney Tunes, but okay. Okay.
Which we also heard in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
That's true. Well, you remember, all art is derivative.
Yep.
That's going to be the theme for this episode. For our 200th episode, everything's derivative.
Next, we get a voiceover from director Carol Reed describing the black market in Vienna following World War II, and how anything and everything was for sale, and how the sellers often wound up dead.
In our version, Alder Reed is speaking, and in the version I first saw. But apparently, well, a little history I read on this film that I did not know before, Joseph Zelnick, the producer, one of the producers, wanted Joseph Cotton to be the narrator. And so they have, somewhere out there is Joseph Cotton doing the narration. It's slightly different from this. But I think this is so much better. All respect to Mr. Cotton.
The narrator also describes how Vienna was divided into 4 quadrants between the British, French, Austrians, and Russians in accordance with the Potsdam Agreement of 1945, similar to how Berlin was restructured and would go on to become the bifurcated East and West Berlin, each with its own associated Germany at the start of the Cold War. He talks about the center of the city and how it was policed by an international police force comprised of the 4 nations controlling this city.
Oh, I was going to tell you about Holly Martins, an American. Came all the way here to visit a friend of his. The name was Lime, Harry Lime. Now, Martins was broke and Lime had offered him some sort of a job. Anyway, there he was, poor chap. Happy as a lark and without a cent.
And now that we're caught up... we meet Holly Martins as he gets off the train, heading directly to the home of his old schoolmate and longtime best friend, Harry Lime. In Harry's apartment building, Holly learns from Carl, the porter, that his friend has died recently and was being buried that very day. Hit by a car and killed instantly, he says. Holly Martins is played by Joseph Cotton,
whom I've seen in Airport 77, Soylent Green. George, that's where the name of your favorite drink comes from.
Nowhere. It's People, right?
It's Soylent Green. It's
sorry,
People.
spoiler.
Spoiler for an 80-year-old film. Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte, Gaslight, 1944 version. There were 2 Gaslights, by the way, and both excellent, but I've seen the 1944 one is the one with Joseph Cotton. There's also Shadow of Doubt I've seen, The Magnificent Ambersons, Citizen Kane, and Touch of Evil.
Carl is played by Paul Horberger. We haven't seen him in anything, but he had 250 anythings to not see him in, so props to him.
Well, it's his own fault. He didn't do enough American pictures or English language pictures. What are we supposed to do?
They were all German pictures. At Harry's funeral, he sees the coffin lowered into the grave, and the attendees all throw a scoop of dirt in. Those present are Major Calloway, Sergeant Payne, Baron Kurtz, and Anna Schmid. We'll introduce them as he more formally meets them. And after the service, Major Calloway offers the obviously lost and bewildered Holly a ride and a drink, and Holly accepts. Calloway's right-hand man, Sergeant Payne, tails them to the bar. Major Calloway is played by Trevor Howard,
who we've seen on the show in Superman.
And Sergeant Payne is played by Bernard Lee.
This was M in every James Bond movie, starting with Dr. No in 1962 up until the 11th Bond film, 1979's Moonraker. And the only reason he wasn't in any films after Moonraker is because he had died after that picture was made. But Bernard Lee, I salute you.
After a few drinks, Holly is waxing nostalgic about his best and oldest now departed friend.
Best friend I ever had.
That sounds like a cheap novelette.
Why write cheap novelette?
That was funny. Mm-hmm. This movie had a couple of them.
Yeah, sure. It's supposed to have some laughs in it.
Calloway hasn't heard of him, and the conversation turns confrontational when Calloway describes Harry dying as the best thing to ever happen to him. He goes on to implicate Harry as being a ringleader in a number of racketeering crimes. Holly correctly IDs him as a cop, and thinks that his friend couldn't possibly have been involved in such shenanigans. He vows to clear Harry's name.
Yep, he's got to, otherwise we don't have a picture.
Yep. Calloway offers Holly a room in a military hotel for the night and a plane ticket back to the States tomorrow. Holly tries to accost him, but Payne steps in and socks him right in the kisser, barely missing a beat in his expression of admiration for Holly's writing, of which he is a fan. Another good comedic beat. I just punched you in the face, but I'm a fan.
I'm a fan of your work. I gotta do my job.
Yeah. Payne brings him around to the hotel and gets him a room. Payne also introduces him to Crabbin, who runs the British Cultural Propaganda Department. Crabbin is excited to have an American writer around and offers to put him up for the duration if he'll give a lecture for the group. Before Holly can accept, he gets a phone call from one of the funeral attendees, Baron Kurtz, asking to meet. Realizing he might now have resources and leads towards clearing his friend's name, Holly accepts the job and the invitation. Crabbin is played by Wilfrid Hyde-White,
whom I've seen in Oh God, Book 2 and My Fair Lady.
And Baron Kurtz is played by Ernst Deutsch. Holly meets with Kurtz, who's heard a lot about him from their recently departed friend. Kurtz has a dog with him, what looks like a Chihuahua Doberman mix of some kind.
That'll become important later.
Mildly, yeah. They head back to Harry's apartment building, and from across the street, Kurtz says Harry was crossing the street from Harry's apartment to meet their Romanian friend Popscow when a truck came out of nowhere like a bus in Mean Girls. Kurtz and Popscow carried Harry to the sidewalk, and that Harry had lived long enough to instruct Kurtz to care for Holly when he arrived, but not long enough for the ambulance to arrive. Harry's doctor, Dr. Winkle, happened to be passing by at that time. This doesn't quite match what he heard from the porter, which was that Harry died instantly. The porter is sweeping outside the building, the sidewalk, which it makes sense to sweep, because there's ever going to be a time when there's not dirt blowing in on it. Holly goes to question him, using Kurtz as a translator, and nothing new is learned. It's apparent that Kurtz isn't translating everything the porter is saying before the porter's wife takes notice and calls her husband away from them. Kurtz tells Holly where the woman from the funeral works. Kurtz also gives his work address so that Holly can find him later in the movie. Holly goes to visit Anna Schmid, a stage actress, and Harry's grieving lover after her show. She is near suicidally despondent. Holly learns that Harry is said to have asked his friends at the scene to care for both him and Anna after he passed, and that the driver of the truck was Harry's own driver. Holly thinks it odd that everyone in Harry's social circle was present at his accidental death, and convinces Anna to come question the porter with him. Anna Schmidt is played by Alida Valli.
Full disclosure, I already said this is my favorite film. I love this picture. You have to wonder, though, why the cops never thought it was curious that all these friends of Harry were there. I mean, I get it. First of all, it's a film noir, so the cops have got to be incompetent. It's also an international police, so it's possible the investigation was half-assed to begin with, but still, it's like, I think that would have, that's odd that you seem to have noticed this, Holly, but no one else does.
Good questions, Joe. So they go to question the porter and learn that he didn't actually see the accident, but he did hear it. He did see 3 men, not 2, carrying Harry's body across the street. He doesn't know who the mysterious and titular third man is. He didn't provide that information during the investigation, and Holly pressures him to do so. A boy, Hansel, witnesses the angry exchange, and the porter insists that Holly and Anna never return. And Hansel is played by Herbert Helbig, and is like the only thing he ever did.
Yes, and that kid is, apparently, as we find out later in the picture, is supposed to be the son to the porter, but the kid is way too young, and he's way too old.
Yeah, kid in the fucking hallway in the building, yeah.
The way I took it when I found out that's supposed to be his dad, I assume maybe he just called his grandfather Daddy, and the father died in the war. That's the only way I can make sense of how this old man has a really young kid. Because the wife we see is also old. They're not fathering that child. I'm sorry.
So Holly walks Anna back to her place and finds that the police are investigating her apartment. They find Major Calloway and Sergeant Payne supervising the operation. Calloway determines that Anna's passport is fake and confiscates it. Calloway suggests that Holly go back to the airport and go home. Anna tells Holly that Harry forged her passport so that the Russians couldn't repatriate her, as she was born in Czechoslovakia, which at the time meant Russia would own her ass.
Exactly.
Calloway takes Anna back to the police station, and on her way out, she sends Holly to talk to Dr. Winkle.
Winkle!
Dr. Winkle is caring for the dog seen earlier with Kurtz, and the doctor claims to have company. Probably Kurtz. The doctor confirms that he arrived after Harry was already dead. The doctor then denies a third man being present and avoids speculating about anything other than vehicular blunt force trauma being involved in Harry's death. Dr. Winkle is played by Eric Ponto.
Yeah, that's where we see the dog again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when Holly's notes that and go, that dog looks awfully familiar.
By Holly notes it, we mean the camera points to the dog to remind us, hey, there was a dog earlier. It wasn't with this guy.
Right. And that shows Harry's face. I'm sorry, not Harry. Not Harry, Holly's face. She's going to keep calling him Harry in the picture as well. His girlfriend of well, the similar name.
Once.
I think she does it more than once.
Well, you've seen the movie more than one time.
Yes, so I'm going to go with what I said.
At the police station, Calloway questions Anna. He shows her a picture of Josef Harbin, a worker in a military hospital, and asks if she knows him. She says no, but he tells her he disappeared the day after she called the Casanova Club for him, as was revealed in a confiscated letter from Harry. Anna insists that Harry is innocent. Calloway keeps her passport and belongings and sends her home. And I didn't make these scene titles, but this scene title was brilliant, as Holly learns even less from Pup Scow.
That's accurate.
Yeah, it reminds me of Jack Sparrow going, well, that was even more than less than unhelpful. Anna and Holly go to the Casanova Club. They pass Krabin, who reminds Holly of the lecture he is to give the next night. Holly and Anna sit at the bar and see Kurtz playing violin. Kurtz looks dismayed to see Holly again, and, when questioned, insists that only he and Pop Scow carried Harry and that the porter must have been mistaken. Kurtz introduces them to Pop Scow, whose account of Harry's death mirrors Kurtz's account in all respects. Pop Scow denies a third man helping him, and Kurtz to carry Harry's body and asks where Holly heard such a thing. He tells him the porter at Harry's building had heard the accident and witnessed the aftermath. Pop Scow is played by Siegfried Brewer. And on a bridge, we see Pop Scow, Winkle, Kurtz, and a mysterious fourth man have a meeting. The following morning, the porter apologizes to Holly for his previous demeanor and arranges a meeting to tell him more that evening. Then we go into the porter's home and see him get snuck up on by someone looking terrified.
Yeah, he looks over as he's closing the window because he's going to say, hey, Holly, come back later. I'm about to reveal something to you. And we never find out what it is because something about to happen. Yeah. But he turns and he sees somebody who I presume is
supposed to be in his place.
Well, obviously, and is our head character, is the one the movie's named after.
Yeah.
He is the third man.
In Anna's apartment, her and Holly spend a good while chatting, with her trying to get him to tell stories about Harry. Eventually, they leave to go to talk to the porter. So Holly and Anna go to the porter's building and find a crowd gathered. Holly is told that the porter has been murdered. Hansel, who'd seen Holly and the porter arguing, begins shouting that Holly is the murderer. Holly grabs Anna and they run away. The crowd pursues them, with Hansel leading.
Hansel being a little boy, but just to remind you folks, the child is in lead of this mob going after what they think is a murderer.
Yep. Holly and Anna duck into a movie theater, safe for now, and Holly tells Anna to go back home.
And she says, don't be an idiot, go to Calloway. Which, of course, she's right.
Holly is scared when a taxi driver speeds off without him saying where he wants to go. It turns out the driver is taking him to his speaking engagement.
Right. He returns to his hotel. He's going to try and call Calloway. And he said, no. There's a driver right out there waiting for you. The innkeeper, whatever his name is, whatever the guy is called, the clerk behind the counter says, hey, the driver's here. And he says, oh, really? And he gets in his car and he gets sped off and like, where are you taking me? And the guy's driving like a maniac because he's late for this thing, but he completely forgot about.
Holly struggles with the questions posed to him. The audience leaves while Krabin regrets hiring him. Popscow arrives and asks Holly if he's writing a book. Holly says he's writing a book called The Third Man and that it's based on fact. Popscow suggests Holly stick to fiction before two thuggish-looking men arrive and get whispered orders from Popscow. The two thugs chase Holly up a spiral staircase at the back of the building. Holly ducks into an unlocked room where he is bitten by a parrot as he escapes through a window.
That whole parrot thing will mean absolutely nothing to the plot. I don't know why that's there. When I first saw this film, I thought, oh, this is going to lead to something later. No, it's just there.
Nope, not at all.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you're involved in a complicated murder where you're covering up someone's being dead and whatever, probably don't keep killing people because then it's going to make things suspicious.
Yeah.
Don't kill the porter. Just leave him alone. He's not talking. Although he says he's going to talk later. What can he possibly know beyond what we've already heard?
Holly tells Calloway about his findings. Calloway, though now convinced that Harry Lime was murdered, is still indifferent and explains that it's better that Harry is dead and offers to show Holly why he believes Harry is guilty of racketeering and murder. Calloway presents a metric buttload of evidence proving that Harry obtained penicillin illegally, diluted it, and sold it to war-ravaged poor hospitals, resulting in the painful deaths of many people, many of his victims being children.
Now that's how you made some money in the Navy, right?
Yep. They called me Child Murdering George.
You're selling all that crappy penicillin to people.
Yep. I mean, sometimes you gotta stretch your product, man. Calloway shows Holly a picture of hospital worker Joseph Harbin, who helped steal the penicillin for Harry. The police forced Harbin to give them information about Harry's operation, and he has recently gone missing. Holly is now convinced of Harry's guilt and agrees to go back to America.
That it hadn't before, but when I saw this movie this morning, when I watched it again, that whole we forced him to confess kind of stuck out to me. Like, well, what exactly did you do?
Bamboo shoots under the fingernails, Joe.
Yes, I'm very curious. So, is that what it involved? Did you guys beat him up? Like, how did he get him? Because he doesn't say, like, he rushed to confess or we threatened him with, we'll charge him with this if he doesn't talk anything. He just says, we just got it, forced it out of him. I wonder how you did that.
Holly goes out to a bar and gets drunk, buys flowers, and then takes them to Anna. He drunkenly calls to Anna's cat, who ignores him. And Anne explains the cat only liked Harry. The cat slips out a window. Then Anna lets Holly know that Calloway also told her about Harry's misdeeds, and though she now believes in his guilt as well, she still loves him. So both now believe that Harry is better off dead. Holly tells Anna that he's fallen in love with her, but she makes it clear that it's not mutual.
So remember, the cat somehow it gets downstairs. It's up in her apartment one minute, and the next thing it's out in the street, and it goes over to this foot and starts looking at this foot of this whoever this mysterious person is, standing in the shadows, looking up at our apartment.
Yep. Holly stumbles outside and sees an obscured man standing in a dark doorway with the cat at his feet. Holly shouts to him to show himself. A light from an apartment shines down into the street, revealing the man in the doorway to be Harry Lime. Harry smiles at a shocked Holly, but slips away when the woman turns off her light. Holly takes off in pursuit and follows into a plaza where Harry disappears. Harry Lime is played by Orson Welles, and we covered his shit earlier.
Yes, we did.
Holly, Calloway, and Payne go to the plaza where Harry was last seen. Calloway finds that the booth in the plaza is an entrance to the Vienna sewers. They follow the stairs into the sewers and see an endless range of tunnels for Harry to use as escape routes.
I love this movie, but shouldn't they have already guessed that people go through I mean, even if they didn't know about Harry Lime being alive, why would they not have guards or something? It's very easy to get in those sewers, obviously. They're not locked for some reason. And they're not like in the States where you need like what is it called? That like long metal thing with the crowbar. So, where you need a crowbar to take the plates off. They just open up a door and it's like a closet and you just walk in. It's like going into a Tardis.
Mm-hmm. That night, Calloway leads a team to exhume Harry's grave. The body inside the coffin turns out to be that of Joseph Harbin.
Which is a hell of a mistake to make, guys. That's some fine police work. I don't know. There's a dead body. He says it's him. Yeah, all right, fine, it's him. Whatever.
Now, the title here says that the Soviet authorities take Anna, and that's incorrect. The international police take Anna into custody over her forged passport, despite an unrelenting yet soft tirade from Anna's landlady.
We can't go against the protocol.
I don't even know what protocol means.
Neither do I, miss.
At the station, Holly sees her brought in and tells her that he saw Harry alive. Calloway confirms this to her in private and asks her help in finding him. At first, she's too stunned to even respond to anything other than that news. Then she's obstinate, refusing to help, to the point of wishing Harry dead rather than to be under their threat. In the morning, Holly finds Kurtz and Winkle and demands that they tell Harry to meet him at a nearby Ferris wheel, where he then waits for a while. Harry arrives to a tepid greeting from Holly. They board the Ferris wheel to have a three-quarter through the film moment of philosophical and slightly yet unnecessarily theological discussion.
Used to believe in God.
Well, I still do believe in God, only. I believe in God and mercy and all that, but the dead are happier dead. They don't miss much here, poor devils.
They talk about politics, morality, business ethics, making and rescinding threats as the wheel brings them around.
Yeah, the whole thing was a death threat. From Harry to Holly.
It's how our business meetings are, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Back on the ground, Harry offers to cut him in on his racket, instructing Holly to send a message and not bring the police. Calloway tries to convince Holly to help them nab Harry. During their conversation, the Russian ambassador to the international zone, or something, comes in and announces that they've identified Anna's Russian origins and will be applying to have her repatriated. Holly gets an idea and asks Calloway what price he'd be willing to pay to bring Harry to justice. Then Holly is waiting at the train station as Sergeant Payne brings Anna and her bags with a train ticket. Once he leaves, Holly screws things up by not hiding. She gets off the train to talk to him and ask why the hell he's there. He's bad at lying, and she figures out that she's being set free as the price for his cooperation. She tears up her train ticket and her new passport.
Yeah, she's like, I'm not going to help you do this. Yes, he probably did these terrible things, but I don't care. I'm not going to see that he's betrayed. Fuck you. It's basically her feeling, which he keeps throughout the picture.
With the price for Holly's cooperation rejected by the price herself, which is a weird sentence to say, Holly is no longer willing to follow through. And it's not mentioned at all that, no, dude, you're actually obligated to help. We made a new passport for her and everything. We held up our end.
Yeah, that's true.
To get Holly back on board, Calloway takes him to the pediatric ward at the hospital, where children debilitated by Harry's adulterated penicillin lay sick, dying, and otherwise infirm. Seeing this steals Holly's resolve, and he's back on board.
You know, that is a very clever scene. I mean, they probably couldn't really show actual sick children, but it's good to let us use our imagination as to what exactly you're seeing in those cribs.
Yeah. Holly arranges to meet Harry at a cafe in the international zone at night with the police hiding in the shadows. Their cover is almost blown by a balloon seller. Anna finds Holly there tipped off by Kurtz, who is just arrested, and she argues with him about being a backstabbing friend type. She also makes fun of his name, for whatever that's worth. Harry comes in through a back door and Anna tells him to run, so he does. Harry runs and ducks into the sewer system, the police and Holly close on his heels. The tunnels fill with police from every quadrant until Harry is cornered by Holly, Calloway, and Payne, because of course it would be those three. Harry fires a gun, killing Sergeant Payne. Calloway shoots back and hits Harry, who disappears into the only stairwell without police waiting at the top for some reason. Holly takes Payne's gun and follows Harry, who is badly injured and desperately trying to lift a sewer grate. Calloway yells after to not take any chances and shoot on sight. Harry nods to Holly as if in agreement in a kind of at least it's you way, and Holly shoots him dead. Holly, Calloway, and Anna attend Harry's funeral, for realsies this time. Calloway offers a ride to Holly, and on the way they see Anna. Holly decides to stick around and wait for Anna to pass. She has no words for him, and he has none for her either. The end.
Well, he obviously wants her to say something to him first, and she does not acknowledge that man at all, which... Loved that ending.
Yep.
Loved it. In the Americans who, because this is a British picture, when they brought it over, they wanted again, back to Mr. Selznick again, wanted a happy ending. And apparently in the book, there's also a happy ending when they get together. And Carol Reed said, no, not doing that. Forget it. And they had a big fight over it. And even Graham Greene, the author disagreed with Carol Reed. It's like, no, we should have happy. And he said, no, you're nuts. And he actually got what he wanted. And Graham Greene would later go on to say, like, oh, no, he was right. That is actually the perfect ending.
Right on.
So, my friend, we already know what I feel. I think this still works. I love this movie. What did you think?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why it won't. Like, it's classic film noir. It sets a it's a prototype movie. It sets the tone and capabilities of movies that follow it. Yeah, it absolutely still works. The story is legit. It's got a good to an extent, you could call it an educational film. It has pieces of the time where Vienna was arranged like that was a fairly short span of time. So, hey, here's a story that takes place during this really niche event.
Right. So,
from that perspective, it's fascinating. Yeah, I definitely think it still works.
You know, I don't know how much you know about the controversies behind this film, but one of them was that there was a thought for a while that Orson Welles is really the director of it, which is ludicrous. Clearly was not. If you look at Carol Reed's work, not that I've seen that much of it, but what I read, and I did see Oliver, it's Carol Reed's picture. But obviously, you know, filmmaking is a collaborative process. So, yeah, Orson Welles did put some things in there. And if you look at some of Welles's earlier pictures, including Citizen Kane, Carol Reed probably was at least a little bit influenced by his work, which is everyone was. You know, it wouldn't have been anything unusual. But no, this is definitely Carol Reed's movie. And it's a great job. I'll just repeat myself. I love everyone in it. I love the direction. I love this whole genre of film noir. I'm a big fan. I just love classic film noir. And what I really liked, again, about this picture, besides the atmosphere and the shooting and the black and white photography, is I really appreciated that ending. A very unusual ending. And listen, I'm someone who did film history. 1949, they were not having films without happy endings. The censors very much wanted to have a happy ending. Even in a film like Casablanca, where there's it's supposed to be, oh no, is she going to run off with Rick or is she going to go back to her husband? There was never any question she's going to end up with her husband because the censors would not have allowed Rick to go off with her. So it's just nice to see this picture, and there's a couple other films from the 50s that just completely, you know, screw the censors. We're going to do our thing. And they got very lucky. In this case, it was a huge hit. That wasn't always the case of some pictures when it gets the grain. The audiences were very conservative back then. So the producers said, oh, no, we did happy ending. We're not always wrong. So at least if you wanted to make money, sometimes they were right. That, yeah, you needed to have it because the audience would have rejected the picture, which is crazy. But, you know, that's just the reality of making commercial work. Anyway, yeah, good movie. Glad I saw it, enjoyed it very much, enjoy it every time I see it. It's just as perfect as a film could get.
Alrighty, so, as we mentioned before, this is our 200th episode.
200 episodes!
That's about 4 years worth of us doing this show together. It is for me, this has been the most consistent creative effort that I've ever engaged on. And Joe, I could not do this without you.
Aw, well, I know you couldn't.
I tried doing it on my own. It doesn't work I can't on my, I need somebody to be my anchor, to be who I'm accountable to get my shit done. Because we rely on each other to care and feed this baby that we've created.
For sure. And you are the most consistent, even though we had a little troubles at the beginning, you are the most consistent person I've ever done a podcast. Because this isn't the first one I've done. And when the stakes were finally laid down, you showed up. And you've done a terrific job. You've shouldered a lot of the burden, perhaps too much of it, and I need to, that's why I want to take on some of the editing, because it's ridiculous that you're doing all of that. And I'm glad that I did this with you. I really do. I appreciate all the work you do. You're one of my dear friends, and I appreciate everything you've ever done for this podcast and just for me personally.
Thanks, dude. I love you, man.
I love you, too.
And speaking of people who we love, who help us, we do have patrons. And I don't think it would be appropriate for us to go through this episode without thanking all 8 of them. Because we have few enough patrons right now that it makes sense for us to name all of them in one episode.
We can do it.
So, our top patron of all time, Aaron Gray.
Aaron Gray, yay!
Thank you. Then we've got my dad. George W. Romaka. Thank you, Dad.
Thank you, Mr. Romaka. One day I may actually meet you.
Yeah. And then we've got Word of the Broad. who's given us a couple of good ideas.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, well, the ideas we definitely have used. And for March, recommendation for Word of the Broad, I'm going to have a whole bunch of Union movies.
Mm-hmm. Then we've got Ian from Wine Country.
Hello, Ian. Thank you very much.
And Joe's good friend, Craig
Bodine. Craig, congratulations on your 1-year anniversary to your lovely bride.
Yep. Then we have Don Ford, voice of Fantasy and Adventure.
That's his real name.
Yep.
And Don, thank you very much.
And the Atheist Kitchen Facebook group. Thanks, Cheryl.
I didn't even know that was one of our patrons. Thank you, Atheist.
That's Cheryl. She's one of my fellow mods in the Puzzle and the Thunderstorm Facebook.
Ah, got it.
And Jennifer Bourne. No, not from like the Bourne Identity. She didn't have her memory wiped. She's not an assassin that we're aware of. But Jennifer, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer Bourne. Got the same name as my sister. One of my sisters.
And those are our 8 patrons. You too can join their ranks and vote on stuff and get early content and get stuff in every extra episode by going to patreon.com/DTSWpod.
And there you can recommend. We have different levels, so you get more money, get more recommendations, I guess. Yep. And but we appreciate everything everyone does. Thank you for listening, whether you're a patron or not. Again, we could not do the show without you, listener.
It'd be pretty pointless without listeners.
And 100% pointless.
For reasons that I say at the end of every episode.
So what's up next, George?
Next week, we will be talking about Brown Sugar from 2001.
Brown Sugar.
Brown Sugar. And I pulled this up to watch it. I'm like, wow, I'm glad I have a black co-host.
Yes, I'm the one who recommended this, but have I seen it? Nope.
But it was one of the, I'm like, oh, well, because, we run into a situation sometimes like, we need representation. Yes. And I'm just glad I have built-in representation.
We're always kind of paranoid about that because on the one hand, yes, we want to have a diverse group of people on, but sometimes...
We also don't want to tokenize people.
We want to tokenize people, and a point you've made before and you're 100% right about, sometimes we'll have like an Asian picture or Indian or whatever, and we want someone from that group there, and they're like, well, that's not the picture they want to watch. Yeah. Just because it has these people in it doesn't mean that's what they want to see. I mean, look, The Third Man, this is my favorite film. Not a blackface in it.
Nope. And I was looking. I was really curious if there were going to be any. There weren't.
It's Vienna, 1940s. Yeah, there weren't going to be any blackface. Unless I'm a black soldier, I guess.
But they didn't even have those.
Nope. Could have been a British black soldier as well, I guess. Anyway. That's what's next week. So I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romaka. Thanks for listening indeed. Because if a podcast drops and there's no one around to hear it, it's just a collection of ones and zeros. That doesn't matter.
Don't be so gloomy. After all, it's not that awful. Well, what the fella said. In Italy, for 30 years under the Borgias, they had warfare, terror, murder, and bloodshed, but they produced Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the Renaissance. In Switzerland, they had brotherly love. They had 500 years of democracy and peace, and what did that produce? The cuckoo clock. So long, Holly.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romaka. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
Pour a cheerful toast and fill it. Happy anniversary. Be careful.
Oh,
but be careful you don't spill it. Happy anniversary.
Let's do that part again.
Yep.
Happy Joe and Happy G.
Happy J and we will now state emphatically it's a happy no.
We now stay in fat. One more time.
That's good enough.
All right, you want to leave it there?
we don't have to do the this part. But all right. And I'm George Romaka. And today for our 200th fucking episode.
What was the fucking part needs to be in there?
No, because I felt the cough coming up.
Oh, okay.
Yank deserter claims Russian. Should I say Russian or should no? Read
it says Russian. Yeah. It comes to us from.
Okay, stop. Why did you write all that?
I don't know.
I'm going to play the sound clip so that we know what we're going to hear.
The child is dead.
Nope. Definitely not that.
That is the wrong fucking movie. who helped steal the penicillin for Harry.
Oh, I'm surprised you don't have the most famous lines in this picture. Or do you use it at the end? Oh, okay, never mind then. That is such a good line. It's too bad much of the history is wrong. But who cares? It's delivered excellently, and that's one of the parts that, not that we're recording right now, but that's one of the parts.
We are recording.
We can still hear that. That's one of the parts that Orson Welles contributed to the film. They were a little short, so he just put that in and gave that line, that line reading. Now, there was some mistake. People thought that was literally from him, and he specifically says, like the fella says, because he can't remember where he heard the quote himself. But yeah, it's not his. He's not the one who came up with that, but, who cares? He delivered it fantastically, and it's a damn good line. Do we want to have this episode be where everyone gets to hear the post-show, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to release it for everybody.
One of the things I was saying, maybe we could, rather than champagne, we should get Budweiser as the champagne of beers.
I'm glad you didn't go with that. Welcome to the post-show, everybody. And by everybody, we mean everybody. For episode 200, we are giving everybody the entire episode.
That's right, folks. You finally get to hear what it sounds like on the other side, where the patrons live.
And it just really does make it easier to edit this one.
So please, if you enjoy this little post show, become a patron. You get to hear it more regularly.
Different questions each time.
Oh, yes, absolutely different questions. Let's start off with our first question here. Mm-hmm. George, if you had to dress every day for a year as either Vinny from My Cousin Vinny, Neo from Matrix, or the kid, that would be Prince from Purple Rain, which costume will you choose and why?
The kid.
Really? Okay, why?
I'm in better shape now, and pretty soon I'll be in good enough shape to look good wearing that. And Prince, not for nothing, he was a popular guy.
He was very popular, yes.
And what Vinny and Neo wear looks unnecessarily constrictive and rubbery.
Well, I disagree with you on this. I think what Neo is wearing looks fantastic, and I totally will wear that for a full year. Are you kidding? I would look great in those outfits. I don't think I'd look so great in purple. Prince in that frilly shirt he liked to wear, I don't think that'd be my thing. Although I am considering getting my nails painted red, so I may be in that genre after all.
Yeah. So, Joe, who, if anyone, inspired you to try stand-up comedy?
Well, that is a good question. I had a number of things influence me. Weirdly enough, one of them was my mother, who she said she hated comedy, and then she'd do all the most bizarre shit. Which gave me the impression, I don't know why she would say that, because she seemed to be perfectly good at it. I told you about the whole... And I'll bring this up again for the people who haven't heard of it. Yes. Well, I have younger siblings, and one day my mother, when one of them was a baby, was breastfeeding one of my siblings, and I walk in and I remember making some sort of comment. I don't know what it was, but basically cover up. I don't want to see this. And she takes the tit out of my sibling's mouth. I think it's the name of my sister, but anyway, takes it out of her mouth and squirts the milk at me.
Your mom was an underappreciated comic genius.
And then she does she just do weird voices on occasion? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she had some mental problem. But it came off as amusing to me. Although not at that moment. Looking back on it at the time, I was like, what the hell are you doing, lady? Yeah, so my mother be one. There was a lot of TV shows I enjoyed watching, like the Flip Wilson show. Sorry, we've been drinking. As well as, I loved this is going to sound weird because all the shit I tell you about Robert Williams, but I loved Mork and Mindy. And so, yeah, so there was a bunch of TV stuff I enjoyed. I could, and I thought I could do it. And for a couple of years I did. And then I thought, no, I can't do it. But that's what got me into stand-up comedy.
Yeah, and the closest thing I can do to answer is why did I want it. I started listening to podcasts stupid early, and I was listening to This Week in Tech with Leo Laporte. And from then on, I wanted to be I wanted a podcast. I thought it was fun that you could talk into a thing and people would listen to you. Sorry, we do that now.
We do that now, yes. Well, that's an addendum to the stand-up thing. And so why did I decide I wanted to be a podcaster?
Well, it seems like an evolution.
Yeah. Yeah, because on the one hand, I'm not doing stand-up anymore, but obviously I still have some need to be entertaining and get out there. I just can't seem to do it in front of a live audience. At least not in terms of doing my stand-up. Although, who knows? Maybe someday I'll return. It seems unlikely. Yeah, but as George has mentioned many a time, sometimes I look like I was not happy to be there. So that wasn't helpful. And I don't feel the same way about doing a podcast, so that helps.
Nice thing about podcasts is you can edit it.
You can edit it, and there is no audio. Although I wouldn't mind doing this in front of a live audience at some point, but that would be me just talking off the top of my head, which I can do very easily. That is not the problem. So when I was doing the prepared material, things didn't always go well for me. Okay, George.
Uh-huh.
Who did you want to die first, you or your spouse?
Me. Always me.
And why?
I don't want to experience the people I love dying. I'm supremely selfish that way.
I think I would also want to go first, if I was married. I agree. I don't want to...
Like, not just my spouse, though. Like, I just want to die before all my friends. I don't want to have to mourn my friends.
Well, for me, that's too late. I've already had friends die. Well, so have you, actually,
yeah.
So... that one's not happening. Yeah, it's interesting how many people, because I know some married couples have had the conversation about, just discussing like which of us would you be okay going first, and some go like, well, I would like to go first, and then I wouldn't go, and then others go like, well, you can go, I would go first, and then if you want to get married again, that's fine with me. I don't, whatever. Which is always a weird thing. The whole, I don't want you to get married again when I'm gone. Why? You're not going to be there. I can never imagine saying that to someone I'm married to. Well, if I die first, I don't want you marrying someone else.
Yeah, when your insecurity transcends death, that's not healthy.
That is not healthy at all. I'm like, what is even the point? What are you talking about? That'd be bananas.
So, Joe, what was your first job?
It was marketing. Well, telemarketing, really, where, you call up people and try to get them to buy whatever. We had different things. It was one of those type of businesses where they had different products to try and sell to people. Horrible. I hated it. Glad I didn't do it for too long, but that was my first real job.
Cool.
What about you?
Bagging groceries.
Oh.
Actually, technically, no. My first job was delivering flyers for a fried chicken joint. That was me and a friend of mine. We were given like $20 to go hand out a stack of flyers and just leave them in people's mailboxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you guys actually do it?
Yeah.
Sometimes people give them flyers and they just throw them in the trash and go back and take the money. Nothing I ever did, ladies and gentlemen, I assure you. George, if you had to be visited by the ghost of a historical figure for the rest of your life, who will you choose and why?
Can I, ask the ghost questions?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And I can talk to this conversations? Fucking Einstein.
Okay.
I think he'll have a lot of insights into things. He was a pretty solid dude in addition to being a brilliant physicist.
Okay. For myself, no one as high-minded as Einstein. I would have either George Carlin or Richard Pryor or both if I can, and just have them feed me material. Yeah, I write something like, hey guys, this is funny. And the ghosts of dead comedians past come visit me and go yeah, that works. So no, I don't know. I would read it this way. I'm
not sure how well that would work out for you, Joe.
I don't know.
Because they're not they're kind of stuck at okay, never mind. I guess it could work as well as Einstein could work for me okay, yeah, never mind.
You're saying they're stuck in their era. Yeah, sure. But as you said, everything's derivative in art, so I'm sure there's something they could say. Okay, let me just update that to modern audiences, but thank you.
So, Joe, what was the most recent new food that you've tried?
New food that I've tried, most recent. Well, I remember when I've tried snake. That was not recent, but that was new to me. And I tried frog's legs, which, as everyone says, tastes like chicken. Which begs the question, what the rest of the frog tastes like? Why is it just its legs? If the legs taste like chicken, how come I don't get the rest of the frog?
Good question, Joe.
There was snails I've had. Not a fan. But none of these are recent. Because I've been trying to diet and be as svelte as George is now, I haven't been eating quite as, as daringly as I might have in the past. But what about you? What have you tried any recent new foods?
We went after our tenor sectionals for choir, which my concert is on Monday from this recording. So a bunch of us tenors went out to a soup dumpling place. And we ordered did it family style where we ordered a bunch of shit. So I tried a bunch of everything. So I tried crab, truffles, bok choy, and tried a soju, an alcoholic beverage. And I liked everything. Everything was fantastic.
But you've never had any of those before?
Nope.
Wow, that's interesting. It's because for some reason and you've never given me this impression that's strictly based on my own, I guess, stereotyping. But the fact that you were in the Navy, I kept imagining that you've tried all these extravagant foods and done all these extravagant things while you were a seaman overseas.
Nope, there are McDonald's in every country.
There are, I know. I don't know. For some reason, I can imagine it was always some sort of daring food you would try. But you were a Christian at the time, so of course you didn't want to try anything new or daring.
Nope. I was already miserable. I didn't want to risk being more miserable.
Meanwhile, if I'm in another country, I got to try the local cuisines.
That's how I am now, yeah. If I'm a new part of the city, I'll try the local cuisines.
Right. I knew this guy, I forget what era of the armed services he was in, but I worked with him in some other job a couple of years ago. And he talked about how he was stationed in the Philippines. And he went to the local market to try some of the local delicacies, and there was and they have rat, like hanging like you would a duck in a Chinese restaurant. And the seller says, "Oh, it's not like Mickey Mouse, huh?"
Yeah.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's all meat.
Yep.
Okay, this is a bonus question, my friend.
Okay.
Poll after poll shows white people, mainly Republicans, believe they face more discrimination in the U.S. than non-whites. Where do they get that? Now, you are presently a white person. Can you explain why white folks get these ridiculous ideas from? They're more discriminated than non-whites, especially black people. Apparently, you guys have had it much rougher than the black folks in this country have ever had it.
Because to those with privilege, equality of others feels like oppression.
That's it. Don't give me the bumper sticker. Come on.
But it sums it up so nicely. Like, that's exactly. What more do you want? Which my bonus question is, after 200 episodes, how can you still think that asking me to figure out why assholes are assholes is a bonus?
I just figured you had the answers.
I gave you the answer. Then you said, not that answer. Give me a different answer.
I remember, it's amazing. But this is genuine. I do wonder where, obviously you're not standing for all white people. I get it. I'm making some jokes here. But I am curious where some white people get the ideas. Like, I didn't get this personally, but I saw this online where this woman was, she went to college and she was hanging out with her white friends and they were talking about how much college costs. And the guy, after the conversation with him, she got from him that apparently he was under the impression that she was going to college for free, that he thought black people got free college. She was like, "What are you talking about? We don't get it for free. Why would you think that?" And now that's one example. And I've had some similar things where people think, for some reason, black people are just walking into places and just getting jobs and getting all this other shit for nothing. Like, apparently, what did a life were like this, ladies and gentlemen? I assure you, if I was getting work as just being black and showing up, I'd do it. But I'd also tell everyone that was happening. It'd be hard for me to keep that a secret. Like, can you believe it? I just walked. That's not how it works. And I don't know why so many white people believe this fantastical idea that we're just getting all this free shit.
Because there's something incredibly tempting about making yourself a victim. That's why.
Evidently. Except it's someone who comes from a history of people who have been victims. It ain't fun. I don't think you would actually like it, folks.
True or false? There exist black people who are anti-trans.
100% sure.
Right. People who were oppressed are not immune to this phenomenon.
Oh, no, not at all. No.
It's just people who weren't oppressed are way more susceptible.
It's so crazy. Although here's a very curious thing, and I think we're going far afield here, ladies and gentlemen. But what's the big that's 200 episodes? Come on.
Yeah.
One thing not
even a particularly long episode.
Not that long episode anyway. As a man in his 50s, I have to tell you, more than ever, I think black people are way more progressive than they ever were when I was growing up. I think there's a lot less homophobia, a lot less trans bigotry. Well, didn't so much even heard of trans issues when I was growing up, which you didn't that much, except for to make fun of the fact, this man's really a woman, and stuff like that. But
not for nothing. Part of that is because black women or black queer people have been at the forefront of every liberation movement ever in this country.
For sure, but they would never always appreciate it.
Right, but it becomes, when that is the case, that can't help but filter into those communities as, oh, that's what we're supposed to be doing. Which, at the same time, that shouldn't be your fucking job.
No.
But if no one else is doing it, good on you for doing it.
And look, I'm no longer a Christian, but the black churches are way more progressive now than they ever were when I was a kid. I can tell you that right now. There are pastors up there talking about like pro-gay marriage and all this stuff, and that would get you run out of the church in yesteryear. And I was like, no, of course, we're for rights for everybody. Why wouldn't we be? But there was a time
a black pastor talking about semen and lattes, though.
Indeed, but he
I just wanted to point that out, that you guys still hold the floor.
That guy was a right winger, though. Hey, but here's a question for you, which you cannot answer.
Well, then that's fun.
But I'm going to put it to you anyway. Do you believe, as I've seen...
Do you believe has to be an answerable question, though.
Do you believe that black men are the white people of black people?
No, because that's a nonsensical sentence.
Well, here's the reason behind it. And I actually think it makes sense. In terms of a group, as black men, we're more likely to be conservative than black women. And we're also we get less discrimination than black women. Women get twice discrimination.
It's an intersectionality problem, right? Black men have male privilege.
Yes.
And male privilege accounts for a lot in this country.
Right.
So yeah, black men have more privilege than black women, therefore could be seen as the white men of black people, but the thing is, they're not, because white men exist and have all the privilege that we have. So it's still just a weird. It doesn't have to be. I think it's a really disingenuous comparison.
Really? Okay.
Well, because the black men lack the white privilege, so to call them the white men of the white people of black people is
within the whole group. Like, for example, again, when you look at conservatives. More white men are conservative, but so are more black men. Also tend to be more conservative. 90% of black men vote for the Democratic Party. It's only 70 or 80%, which is still the majority, of course. But still, there's at least 30% of black men who are the most reactionary bullshit you ever heard in your goddamn life. But they might as well be white dudes for all the shit coming out of their mouths. So I see.
The thing is, they're not.
Well, no.
They still have an outsized chance of being murdered by a police officer for a traffic stop because of their skin color. Like, and that's why it strips. It's unfair, I think, to strip the black identity from somebody, even if they're an asshole.
For sure. But at the same time, if you are espousing a viewpoint that helps prop up this racist system, then you're still a part of the problem. Like,
well, then you're
Clarence Thomas is.
We have a word. We already have a term for that.
Which is?
What do you call Clarence Thomas?
An Uncle Tom? Well, I mean, and Clarence Thomas is a perfect example of this. This man looks blacker than I am. I mean, he is dark, and he has the most reactionary bullshit politics you ever heard in your fucking life. He's black. Been black his whole life. Been black longer than I have.
Yep. He's an Uncle Tom. He doesn't have to be a white man of black men. He's an Uncle Tom.
But Uncle Tom's a white man of black men. Let's have...
Yeah, I'm not going to police how black people talk. I just don't think it's the best.
All right, salute.
So I'm already out.
The 200 episodes. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thanks for putting up with this.
I think that's about enough of this. Have a good night, everyone.
Stay safe. Get jabbed.
Bye-bye.